Livestream. I am your host, Benjamin Wheeler, and I'm here with my co host, Anthony Marquetta, and we are going to have a little play for you. Two Twitter incels dressed in hooded cloaks meet in a secret chamber. Behold, the detestable Normie, a mere dopey Chad, and his hole, who most likely has been already been passed among the local blackamoors for their sexual pleasure. They are to be scorned. Anthony.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize that was the first line. Uh, you fool. The normie is to be praised. Behold his worthier genetics, his effortless athletic prowess, how he has captured the heart of a Stacy at such a young age. We must note his ways and emulate them.
Emulate his ways, ignorant swine. To what end? To become nothing more than goy cattle, fatted up on Zog Chow. Excuse me.
Keep going.
Toiling without relief for his Levantine paymasters. A loathsome fate to be avoided at all costs.
But surely the evidence of his superior hormonal profile is clear, and his choices of pastime, lawn care, domestic light beer, the game. A life of such easy merriment is most enviable.
Enviable if you prefer slop like a hog at his trough. Pitiful. It appears that all it takes is the promise of a crumb of pussy and a suite of streaming options for you to turn away from a life of the mind. That is avant garde anime and Faustian video game analysis.
I love the normie.
I hate him.
Then have at you. Draws dagger.
The Zog Chow line always gets me. Uh, This is from a good account called Same Meme at St. Louis Stan. I've recently discovered him, but let me tell you, this is near and dear to my heart. Um, for I have argued from the position of the loving normie, loving incel, several times, as well as generally, being brought to tears by this. Howling Mutant, as well, is weeping. Free Narnian is clapping. Thaddeus Chadwick says this is from Coriolanus, which is pretty funny if you know the play. Uh, so on and so forth. It's a gem, as they say. But what is the psychology behind it? One of the perennial talking points of this show is the social sexual hierarchy as codified by Vox Day. The reason why we accept that is not because we ourselves are some sort of striver to be alpha or sigma or whatever, but simply because it is a fantastic heuristic to understand the world around you, how people interact, and even to write out your characters. It's also kind of special for me since I was, I think we both were maybe, but I know I was following Vox Day at the time he was writing these things for the first time. So, it's like I was there when the deep magic was written. Alpha Game 7969. Your powers have no hold over me. I've internalized the fractal nature of the social sexual hierarchy and have already reconverted myself into the alpha and you into the traitorous gamma. That's how it works,
Yeah,
right, Anthony?
I mean, let's try and be professionals about this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so the tweet itself is interesting because it's one of those. This is things where it's like, well, this is really super benign, and if you don't think that, that says something about you, right?
Yep.
So what's going on here? We have a football player kissing his girlfriend. I would assume anyway.
Yes. The
We
cheerleader.
could, yeah, we could be wrong. It could not be his girlfriend, which would be even funnier. But anyway,
It's in Alabama. It's
yeah, I'm not. Or I was thinking it could be like just some random girl decide to make out with him. But I assume his girlfriend, who is a cheerleader,
yes.
right?
Yes.
There is literally like nothing noteworthy about this photo. Except like, okay, I guess his girlfriend's a cheerleader and he's a football player and they kissed. Right. And that is going to be the takeaway, I think, of most people. But for some reason, this photo seems to provoke a lot of anger among a certain type of person. And that's what the dialogue is, like two incels looking at this photo. Now, here's the thing. What is an incel? An incel is an involuntary celibate, right? What is kind of lost in this is that people think of incel generally as like the lower end of the sociosexual hierarchy. So the omega and the gamma, right?
Mhm.
But what is sort of missed in this is that for most of their lives, a delta is going to be an incel, right?
Yes.
Um,
Of some kind
and
or other.
yes. And there's really nothing like, I'm trying to think of how to put this exactly. There is no moral value in being or not being an incel, right?
Right.
So if you are an involuntary celibate, all that means de facto is that you want to have sex with someone, but you haven't yet for whatever reason, right?
Right.
There is no virtue and there is no vice in this. You know, I can like,
Pretty much.
you are not more virtue. So fornication is a grave sin. I think that this is should be noted. People will, this is one of the problems I do see in like the pickup artist sphere. I do not blame Vox Day for this. He does not do this, by the way. For the record,
They
Vox
existed before
yeah.
him. Yeah. Well, not
Vox
before
is
him,
not
but
one
like,
of these
you know.
people. He does not make this error, but it's not morally neutral or morally praiseworthy to fornicate, right? This is a flaw that is more common, substantially more common with the alpha and the sigma, especially the alpha. Right? And it should be noted that this is a flaw. Like, again, you are not, being an involuntary celibate is a morally neutral thing, but that's the thing. It's morally neutral. If you're involuntarily celibate, you are not more moral than the fornicator. You just haven't had an opportunity. I've had this conversation with people who, again, the people who I've had these conversations with are not gammas. They are deltas. And they were like, yeah, when I was younger, if I could have slept with someone, I would have. They're not more moral than the alpha who does. They just didn't have the chance, right?
Yep.
Okay. So keeping this in mind, what are we looking at here? Why do people get so mad? I mean, it's jealousy, obviously. Right? That's the really obvious thing. And frankly, I think it's going to be more often the omega that gets mad than the gamma. Although the gamma sometimes has the tendency to create like elaborate counter fantasies in their head about how he's secretly abusing her. Yeah.
I view that as a kind of wrath.
Oh, it is. Yeah. Yeah, 100%. The gamma can do that, but I actually think more often it's going to more often it's going to be the omega who's really angry because the omega is the one who tends to fantasize about revenge.
Well, I would say that it's the omega in times when the girl is the object of his desires, but not in a general sense. Like they may not like it, like in the same sense that you would shy away from a rotting animal or something. It's like, PDA. But at the same time, unless it's like, this is the girl of their dream kind of thing, which they share with gammas. I don't think they get mad nearly as much as gammas do. And I'll make the argument that why gammas get mad now is that gamma fantasies are so rife that there's many famous instances of a gamma making up some lies or fakeness or just fantasizing about being a white knight, doing violence, terrible violence, of course, on the targets of his ire, that I think that's, like it's a more active hate. Like the Omega, when he crashes out, does so, not necessarily from a position of active crashing out. He does it because people mess with him. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I would
So
agree
that's
with
how
that.
I'll push back. Yeah.
I mean, I'm not. Yeah, this isn't very serious. We're just trying to be a little bit more professional in our analysis of like the
Mm,
angers behind it. But
yeah.
like when it comes to the delta, I think that like most deltas are going to look at this and rationally know nothing wrong is happening here. That doesn't
Yeah.
mean like there might be a twinge of jealousy, but any rational human being will be able to recognize in themselves, well, I'm just jealous. Like I can't really have a problem with it, right? Like I think that being mildly jealous is fairly normal and not particularly a problem as long as you recognize that this is what's going on and like call it out in yourself, right? Like,
Right.
well, you look at this, you might get a little sad for a moment, and then you think to yourself, well, they're not doing anything. I'm just jealous,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's the delta response, right? The delta response is generally either nothing, just good for them, hope they're enjoying themselves, right? Like,
Right.
or possibly mild jealousy that is called out in themselves and not expressed out loud because they know that it is wrong, right?
Yeah.
Like, that is the fundamental difference. Okay. So if you are the sort of person, but this kind of gets to something that I mentioned on Twitter and you reposted because it gets to the heart of it of like what's going on in the West where it's like, oh, 20% of men are getting with like, what was it, 70 or 80% of women, something absurd like that.
Yeah.
Right. Like what's
The
going on
usual
here?
thing. Yeah.
And then you go, because that's not normal, or at the very least, it is normal, but it's not healthy. Something is wrong in society for this to be going on. So the answer is that in the West, what has occurred since roughly the sexual revolution, you could probably date it to earlier than that if you're really a historian about it, right?
Yeah.
But roughly the sexual revolution is that the normal ways that we have to, I'm trying to think of the words exactly, for men and women to interact and pair bond, right? That's
Right.
really the clinical way of putting it, to interact and find prospects for marriage have been destroyed one by one. And there are many reasons for this. Like women are vulnerable. They're vulnerable, however, in ways that people don't want to admit. It's not just physical, right? There's also a
Right.
sort of mental vulnerability. They're vulnerable to strong psychological profiles, which are the alpha and the sigma, right?
Mm-hmm.
The alpha and the sigma will be able to manipulate, women are more easily deceived. This is straight from Genesis. It's often disagreed with. People will push back against it, but I don't buy it. I think it's clear, right? Genesis is very clear. Women are more easily deceived than men, and this plays out, as far as I have seen, in real life, very commonly.
Yep.
And in history, this is how people have acted. Women are protected, and then they are. I'm not saying that women don't deserve to have a choice of who they end up with. In fact, that's actually something that is like kind of unique to the Christian tradition, is that we do believe that women need to have a choice. You can't be forced into a marriage. This was a huge innovation in Christianity to the point where it made a lot of like royal families angry, right, at the time,
Mm-hmm.
where the women would say, well, I don't want to marry him. And then they would go to the church and the church would go, no, she's right. Like if she doesn't want to marry him, then they're not married. We don't, it's not a marriage. And it would cause a lot of problems with like royal families. So
Mm-hmm.
I want to be very clear here. I am not saying that like, oh, women should be forced into arranged marriages. I am not against arranged marriages as long as both sides consent in certain situations. Arranged marriages can work, and they do work in many scenarios. But I don't think that like I'm not saying that women need to be everything needs to be chosen for them in the sense of like, we know what's best for you, you get to pick. What I am saying is that an environment needs to be created where good men and good women have an opportunity to interact that is safe, moral, and conducive for building future relationships, and don't have the deltas and the bravos, specifically the deltas. The bravos will do okay if they tag along with an alpha.
Yeah.
But specifically the deltas. The gammas too. I mean, gammas have always existed. They're going to need to be paired up as well, right?
Right. You
And
can't
even the
castrate them all.
omegas. Yeah. And even the omegas, because omegas again are a part of society, and like they will also need to find a place in it. We need a way for them to interact and find women. We've had this discussion in the past. Again, I'm not sure if you've heard, but I'm engaged.
What?
We'll discuss this later. You met my fiance. You spent a full week with us there.
Yeah, but we didn't talk about marriage. You just kept getting weird. It's like, oh, Ben, if you leave us alone, we might do something. And I thought that was like playing Parcheesi or something. Okay.
I would like to point out publicly, we never said that. Anyway. Okay. No. But like, I'm engaged, but we've had this conversation in the past, right?
Yes.
Where it's like, you are a college educated individual. And this is like, I am a college educated individual, right? Like, we have jobs, we are stable, we have morals, right? It's frankly absurd that someone like you in any society would have any sort of trouble finding a wife, right? Like, it doesn't really make sense. You should be a perfectly fine marriage process. Like, yeah, could you be making more money? Could you be doing better? Sure, but people are in worse positions than you and are doing fine with women. So that's not a good excuse.
That's true.
Yeah.
And they have worse personalities, which I was about to blame. But,
Yes.
frankly, I don't really have any excuse except for my general fear of social interaction.
Yeah, well, I would have said this in the class as well. Then I got engaged, but it was the same sort of thing. Like, it took me a long time to get engaged. And in that time, it's like, I'm not saying that I'm not an alpha or a sigma. I am about as delta as you could get. I fit the stereotype pretty much to a T. It's comical how how delta I am. But
He says that.
Yes. But with that said, it's like, okay, but I'm college educated and have a job. And like, yeah, I was living with my parents, but when I decided I didn't want to, I was able to move out within 6 months or so. Like, it wasn't a huge problem or anything, right? The idea that I would have been that I was single for as long as I was not able to find someone, like, that is a serious issue with society. And what had happened is that all of our methods of finding men and women, right? Like, or pairing up men and women. Oh man, I'm going to need to get a new laptop. I dropped it and then I restarted it and now the screen is flickering.
It's probably a loose wire.
I have no idea how to fix that. Whatever. It's fine. It's cool. Anyway. As long as it works for now, I can deal with it until I figure out a way to replace it and or fix it. Okay. Anyway, the point being, right? The fact that you and I are in I was, and that you are in the situations we're in is a sign of a society that, since the sexual revolution, roughly, has torn down the normal ways and means that men and women can interact. And it's a very common thing, starting with the millennial generation, mainly as a complaint. Men and women have no idea how to interact with each other anymore. So what does this mean in practice? Well, with no way of pairing up men and women in a safe and moral environment and like finding spouse, and for parents and churches not to have methods of pairing up spouses, what you get is women will gravitate towards the highest value men, who are the alphas and sigmas. So we're in a world where the alphas and sigmas and to a lesser extent, the Bravos who will get the leftovers of the alphas, right?
Mhm.
Will get the easy pickings of women. They will get their kick of whoever they want. Now, none of this means like that the alpha and the sigma is necessarily doing anything wrong, right? Like they could be and often are, but they don't have to be.
Right.
You could be doing like you could just be an alpha and have an easier time with women, and that's who you are, and that's what it's like for you. But often they
Mhm.
are. And the real issue is that there's no defense, right, of women
Right.
getting taken advantage of. And this is not in a way, I'm not saying this in like a feminist way of like, oh, these poor women. What I'm saying is this is how it is, right?
Yeah.
Like women will get
Uh,
taken advantage of, to whether it is their fault or not their fault. You can spin it however you want. It is a fact you have to deal with.
right. And there's there's a big part of how do I want to put it? Like a big part of the social sexual hierarchy is a non-denial of reality around you. How does the delta act? How does the bravo act, and so on and so forth. The ideas that are put forward are designed to basically say, okay, if you see this situation, these are a few rules that you can do for it. But for like a natural man who is not like thinking deeply about his life, like overall, that kid kissing the cheerleader may merely be the situational alpha, who's good at being an alpha, but in reality, if you looked at him in the great milieu, he's actually just a delta, a high delta, maybe a low bravo. It's
Yeah,
it's
who
about
knows?
it's who knows, but that's too big a fractal to judge anything. In that case, I'd be like a full omega or something like that. When in actuality, I can talk to women just fine. They just not on stream. You see, the I had conversations with Caitlin, didn't I?
You
Anthony.
were polite.
Okay, good. Yeah, I'll take it. The but the next set of steps with that is to say, okay, that's too big a thing. In his microcosm, he is an alpha. Because he is an alpha, he he actually has duties and responsibilities. And in fact, he was chosen by one of the cheerleaders to accept his advances when he, talked to her or whatever, or maybe they just sort of fell together. It doesn't. The details don't particularly matter, but the girl is as much of a willing participant as the guy in these situations. Like for the pickup artists who I'm sure you've heard of negging and stuff like that, dear viewers. But the pickup artists and stuff like that prey on women who are either looking to slut it up in Vancouver slut clubs, or they're very, very poor self esteem. So that works on things like that. If they actually went up to an aristocratic woman and gave her a hard neg like they would in a club, uh, they would be rejected. There would be duels fought in her honor. Her orbiters would gladly murder you for her. And they would probably be right to do, as you are a fox among the henhouse, or at least you were trying to be. More like vaguely confused possum in the henhouse. Dangerous, but not actually that dangerous. Uh, it, like to overanalyze these things is to, sort of like intellectualize something that is probably quite natural. Well, it is natural, but it's probably happened quite naturally. He saw her, he liked her, he talked to her, she liked him, and so on and so forth, which is something that I think a lot of these, the people talking about it, or the people who do like green line tests and stuff like that, don't quite get. Like fundamentally, if two people are in a green line test and they're in a relationship, there's probably a reason why they're in a relationship. You can't green line test somebody and then 5 years later, this Hollywood actress has an affair. Like, first off, it's Hollywood. Secondly, it's been 5 years. Who knows what has happened? The incel might say, well, it was obvious. Well, maybe he looks at this picture and he hates them, not because of any particular, um, he hates them because of his internal deformity, sure, which is something I'm going to talk about in a little bit when I get to the opera section of this live stream. Didn't think there'd be an opera section, huh? Did you? But he takes a look at it and he goes, "I hate them." But another might say, "I love them." Look at these. This is two beautiful people, which is my position, by the way. Uh, uh, I don't know if I directly inspired it, but I did write a post that same meme did that basically said that I love the normie. Like that, I basically said that in a Twitter post. More flowery, but that sort of thing. And I said that it was a measure of health for the soul. Do you look on the beautiful quarterback and the beautiful cheerleader, getting together and so on and so forth, sharing a kiss on the eve of victory, and do you hate them or do you love them? The hateful man will hate them, for their beauty, for the things that he can't have. Don't you know that the Jews took my high school romance anime from me, Anthony? I'll never forgive them. Ignoring the fact that the incel may have had any number of reasons why they had no dates in high school, either from poverty or from home life causing them to be unable to act on their feelings, or various perversions, or they've already fallen into a bad crowd and accepted mindsets that remove them from the ability to do these sort of things. um, there's any number of reasons. Maybe they have expectations in some way, shape, or form, but they lack confidence because of some other reason. These things are more complicated than just personality, but it should be studied, it should be understood, that fundamentally the man who hates the quarterback and the cheerleader getting together has an issue in his soul, deeper, deep as the sin in his life, uh, deep as the sin in his life, to be clear. uh, God made these beautiful people just like he made the incel. And the incel likely abuses his body, either through masturbation or obesity or even being too thin and weak, being unable to do anything. I had one of my coworkers, uh, had a boyfriend cheat on her. And the guy is smaller than her. He's still, like stronger than her because he's a guy, but like he was smaller than her. She was taller than him, and he was wearing, and they both, like she was wearing the smaller shoes. Okay, and apparently he did it with like some ugly chick. To me, it's like that's a strange behavior. You know, he gave up something that seemed to be turning out pretty well. A high school romance for something that might be inferior. But at the same time, he still made choices based on his lusts and activities that sort of ruined what he had. So it's to look on these people and make their decisions, and hate the quarterback or love the quarterback, is almost losing the plot. In reality, one should go, "Oh," and then move on with your life. Um, you know, hmm, you need to stop fiddling with things and then dropping them. But anyway, for me, this thing is an important issue because it defines and it makes explicit what the issue is in the soul. Does the soul hate or does the soul love God's creation? For the Christian, it should always be love for God's creation. These two people might be unsaved and they are going to hell. They need to be reached out and brought into the fold of the gospel. You know, their souls need to be prayed for. I hope they're part of a good church, but we don't know what the state of their souls are. And quite frankly, it might not be very good. It's hard to tell from this distance. But for the Christian, it's like these are good things that God has made. They're coming together. Let us hope for their souls. But quite frankly, I do view it as a good thing of God that beauty finds beauty. I'm beautiful on the inside, Anthony.
Yeah, I'm sure.
uh,
Yeah, to me, what this tells me is like the fact that such a photo breeds such contempt from people, which, as you're correct, it should not. But the fact that it does is a sign of the times and not a good one. Because,
mm,
like, I'm not saying that people wouldn't feel envy or anything like that in other generations of higher status people. That has always and will always exist. Uh, Nevertheless, like for something this benign, that's not good. Yeah.
right.
Um, and it's a problem of like, when you look at like period dramas and whatever, you see it used to be like, okay, we have you set up with 5 suitors who we all think would be good picks with for you. You'll meet with your parents in the room, and then you'll pick from the suitors, and you'll have a right. Like that's a
Right.
good method. You know, it's good for the man and the woman. The man can come calling on the woman. The woman can communicate with these men in an environment that is safe, and will help to weed out bad picks, right?
Yep.
Uh, yeah, like the Delta should not have this much of a problem finding a wife. Like the fact that we are
Hmm.
in this scenario is really terrifying, frankly. You know, it's one of the reasons we're in this demographic free fall.
Yeah.
Like, and the way to fix unfortunately, this is one of those things where it's like there is no fix without fully changing the culture, right? Like, we can't fix it. What we can do is pray, and we can offer up ideas. Like, I know a dude, Tim Gordon. He's like a Catholic apologist or whatever, but his big thing is that he's very anti-feminist. And good for him. He should be, but like he has a service where if you pay him $1,000, he plays matchmaker, right? Now, what to think of this? Is this a grift? Is this a good thing? Now, he actually has a thing. I was, to be clear, I was not considering this myself. Um, but I saw it and I was interested in what it was about. So was looking at it, and he goes like, well, the $1,000, like, is this a good idea? Like, why are we charging $1,000? And he claims, well, because we think that the man should be the provider, and if you can't afford $1,000, then you're not ready yet anyway. Which I'm skeptical of this argument. I don't know. What do you think, Ben?
I think it's over exaggerated to a point. So yes, the man should be a provider, but at the same time, our economy is so trashed that unless you are, in some sort of field that pays a lot, which not everyone is good for, because like engineering, I'm a smart man. I can understand when smarter people talk to me, and I can understand, like it's not like I'm not that genius, but at the same time, when geniuses talk to me, I can comprehend what they're saying to a point. But the thing is, I still can't do the math. Like it's like if you sat me down with a step by step for differential equations or something like that, like high value velocity within a rotating sphere that's um, uh, rolling something, rolling a fine powder, which is like flour. I'm basically describing a flour mixer, except I'm using fancy scientific terms. I couldn't do the math. I get like 5 different answers. I've had a nuclear scientist tutor me with math, and he couldn't figure out how I got the wrong answers. Like it's a bad situation. But it's like, okay, so you can't do the math. Why don't you do this or that? Well, I don't want to do, I don't want to be a plumber. I want this, but like in reality, I've got a mouth on me and I can do a sales job, so I can earn money through that. But it might not be the money that someone's like, well, you should be earning 100K a year. Well, no, like, where do you get that number from? Who's working for who? Well, you looked at my job market, which is full of Pajit tech jobs, and they're getting about 100K a year, and I just like head desk. Like there's no like logic or rhyme or reason to what people say about that. You know, I'm making more money than I've ever had, and I still sometimes have trouble. And I don't even have more debt than I've ever had in different times. So it's like, there's something deeper wrong with the economy for him to say that. Quite frankly, the idea of a stay at home mother is not going to work as well as everyone would like it to be. There are people who will achieve it, and there are people who are perfectly good who will never achieve it. And that's going to be okay. Uh, they'll have to work with it, scrimp and save. My goal is to be self sufficient, but at the same time, God's going to have to provide that path if He intends it for me. But He's provided it for other people. So it's like that sort of thing, like with jobs and stuff like that. Yeah, I'd pay $1,000 for a matchmaking service. However, you know, like is he going to look at my money and say, "Oh, actually, you paid your $1,000, but you're actually too poor. Sorry, bro. Sorry, bro. You don't get the wife. You earn under 60,000 a year. Sorry, bro. No wife for you, and I keep the $1,000." Like one hopes he would give back the $1,000, but like it's that kind of thing, right? Like what's the mindset behind that? $1,000 is easy. You can earn that on a lottery ticket you paid $2 for. People win those like little piddly ones all the time. I know because I worked in a gas station for a year during COVID, and people were bored and buying immense amounts of lottery tickets. Like it's just a frustrating situation with this sort of thing, with this sort of talk. It's like, can you support yourself in an apartment? Are you is the person going to go, oh, you don't have your own you don't have your own house? Sorry, bro. Sorry, no wife for you. But I live in this place. Oh no, you need to move to. Like I get kind of mad at these posts, but it's like you got to move to Crime Town, where it's 50% or less white, and you have to buy this Detroit shanty, and then you'll have land for the wife, bro, who'll be totally safe in Crime Town with less than 50%. Like it's ridiculous nonsense. No one actually knows what they're talking about in regard to that sort of thing.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, yeah, sure, I accept it. I should pay money for a wife finding fee. I believe that. But if the thing is that like, you have to pay $1,000, for this, and it's like a sign of your wealth. Like, what do you mean? I earned that on a good commission week. It's uh, you know, Aaron Van Treek says, if it helps, I make nearly 100K and it's done nothing for my dating life. Like, yeah, it's like the thing that we talked about earlier. There's things that are borked, and the answers are gone to the wind. What my goal is, I'm gonna lose weight, learn how to dance, and we'll see where that goes from there as my social graces grow, and
So
I, stop being an extra, the understudy for that guy from the Office Space.
learn how to dance is a dope goal.
It is. It is. It's one of those things that are up there. Like I actually like ping Jeffro Johnson for a bunch of like tips and stuff. Like what is it? What do you mean with what? So like I'm scared of people saying no publicly, and he's like, oh yeah, that happens. But what you do is you just move on and never ask her out, ask her to dance again. And I'm like, oh yeah, of course, that makes perfect sense. Like because it's like, what's the etiquette in that situation? When somebody just, you know, it's like, yeah, oh yeah, you just move on, you know. But it's
No,
difficult
I
sometimes with
cannot
doing that.
dance. I did theater in high school, right? Like, you got some deep lore for me for the viewers of the show,
Yeah.
right? Ben knows this, but viewers of the show who don't remember, I did theater in high school. I
That's
was
okay.
actually really into it. I loved it, but I was in a couple of shows, and my dancing was so bad that they re-choreographed one of the numbers, so everyone danced around me. This is real. This is the deep lore.
Bradford Walker says during Corona Chance World Tour, I got into a few things as a hobby. I picked up digging into millionaire migration. They hard filter prospects before a word is said. Oh yeah, oh yeah. Like it's one of those things. Like the elite types, won't even you won't even reach them. Quite frankly. he continues marriage, facilitators will do the same thing. They won't even talk to you if you can't meet expectations. Yeah, and that's reasonable to a point, but it's like, there's a girl I might ask out at work. She laughs at my jokes. Well, what's going to happen then? I don't know. I don't
Do
know
it.
anything about her. I'm going to. But it's like, the like I went on a rant, I think last week or something, where like people's expectations don't matter. But this is actually kind of one where they do, but not in the sense of what you do when you're there, but in the sense of even getting into the door. Like once you're inside the door, things are actually pretty easy and you can do what you want. Like you have to be accepted first. Like when I was at a meeting and some guys were talking, and then the guy who was chairing the meeting said something, and I said, "Hey, quiet, quiet," like command, bravo kind of behavior. They shut up and they listened. Uh, they if I just walked in there and said, "Shut up, the man is talking," they would be like, "Who the f are you?" So yeah, it's fine. Like I'm not arguing that people shouldn't meet expectations. I'm just saying that like there's people who are gatekeeping that have expectations that may or may not be good for your situation, but there are ways around it. Uh like I've danced with women before. I know a little swing dancing. You be shocked how amenable women are after you dip them over your elbow. They are positively beaming and friendly. Even just doing a little cabbage patching near them while a terrible band is playing songs from the '90s that people would rather forget. Uh, have any of you guys read Beyond Redemption? No, we have not, sir. I apologize. I do not know what that is,
Yeah,
but it may
sorry.
not
Don't
be
know.
relevant enough for us to know either.
Excuse me for a second. I think I will have to reset my laptop because it's now flickering at a degree that might give someone who isn't me seizures. I have already ordered the replacement, but it will not be here for a while. So give me a second while I reset it and hope that this fixes the laptop.
Sure. Anthony, what's your opinion on this? Oh, very wise. Better than you usually say.
Ouch. That was mean.
Sorry. But no, to continue with the point here. There's a point to where you want to be genial and nice and so on and so forth. I think Landcraft might have been promoting his own book, maybe. Where you want to be genial with people and sort of playing their game, right? But then the thing is that like there's also times when you just shouldn't care, like the Sigma lifestyle, it's and I say that in a sort of like jocular sense more than a literal sense. Like you do have to like internalize it in a way that makes it confident. Like it's like when you're at work or something, and people say, "Oh, this has to be done this way," or someone else says that has to be done this way. In reality, the person who's wrong, you should just say, "Oh, well, I'll think about it," and then you go off and do it the right way. Like whatever they say, even if they're a manager, if they're doing something actively harmful to your job, you can just go, meh, meh, you know. But yeah, I was kind of out of points at that stage. Um, I was hoping for Anthony to say something. I'm so lonely. I do like the quarterback and cheerleader image quite a bit. Um, and it's not because of like some sort of just beauty or whatever, or even all just God's creation. It's the fact that it's a happy image, right? It's something beautiful that somebody can latch on to without experiencing sort of pain. You know what I mean? The it's hard to go over it, like when you see something happen that you want, you can either envy it in a way that, hurts you. Ben, Anthony's computer is not doing well. I'm so sorry. I hope he comes back soon. Uh, everyone left. It's just us. It's just me. I'm making too many jokes. There's a play. I'm just going to pivot. No relation to the previous statement. There's a play called Rigoletto. I enjoy this play. One of my favorite tropes in. Oh, it's Anthony. I didn't miss you at all.
Wait, hold on. No sound yet.
I made a joke. I made a tsundere joke. There's anyway.
You did it.
Yeah, you did it. You hear?
Yeah, I'm on the gaming laptop.
Fair enough.
I ordered a replacement. It's all good.
Okay. Glad to hear it. And I didn't miss you at all. I just want you to know that. No missing.
I already knew that.
Okay, good. But there's a play called Rigoletto. I think I showed that the shortened English version to you, Anthony.
Yeah. Opera time.
Yeah, opera time. I genuinely enjoy it because one of the tropes I love most of all is a jester getting his revenge to a powerful figure who abuses him. Hop Frog, Rigoletto, Die Fledermaus, I believe, and others. They all feature like a jester type character who gets his revenge. In Rigoletto, though, in Hop Frog the revenge succeeds. But in I don't remember what happens in Die Fledermaus. I've never actually seen it. People just tell me it, and I want to go see it. But not even for the Batman thing, for itself. But for Rigoletto, the jester is demeaned of his conquests and is in the end spurned by the assassin, and his own daughter is slain and offered up to him. Is offered up to him as a fake death. He wants the Duke of Mantua killed, but instead, his own daughter sacrifices herself for the Duke, exchanging her life for his, which is more explained in the long version, by the way, Anthony. Like the long version of the play has just the opera has so much more to it.
I feel it.
But there's like several scenes there where you can almost smell the social sexual hierarchy, like cracked pepper on a roast. Where the alpha Duke is seducing various wives, and one of his counts takes offense, but really he can't do anything about it. He's not alpha enough, so he's really like a delta, and these bravos actually like calm him down. And then there's another alpha character with like or even a sigma, maybe, with Count Montesson, who has the famous line, you send the jackals on the dying lion. Do you mock the grief of the father? As well as I curse you, and they, back away from Rigoletto. Oh, he cursed him, and Rigoletto stumbles away. Oh, the old man cursed me. But Montesson is outside the social hierarchy, but has to be respected. But at the same time, the Duke can have him executed, or at least imprisoned, for his rebellion against him, which was spurred on by the rape or at least seduction of his daughter by the Duke. Like but the jester is the Omega, like Omega Gamma kind of scale. But maybe Sparrow Fusil is the Omega, the assassin. who lives as a pimp. Or maybe he's just another type of alpha like the Duke, except it's, through dread game, as they say.
Yes.
Um, it's one of those things where it's like there's interest to it, right? And so what does Rigoletto resent? He doesn't actually resent being, well, he doesn't like being cursed. Like it sets him to fear and trembling. And he hates the Duke in a way. But he doesn't really fire on it until his daughter is despoiled by the Duke, is seduced, and she falls in love with him. For 20 pieces of gold, will Spyro Fusil take the Duke's life, 10 up front, 10 after. The deed is done. Yet the Duke seduces Spyro Fusil's sister, or perhaps prostitute. It's just interesting stuff, and the resentment goes all around. The Duke seduces whoever he wants, but the bravos of his court just go, "Ah, it's the Duke. He does whatever he wants. If a woman should catch my eye, it doesn't. Like these songs actually just sort of go like, yeah, he's an alpha. He just does whatever he wants. Screws whoever he wants. Just don't be mad about it. Don't be a stuffed shirt about it, Count Campione or whatever your name is. But at the same time, they deeply, deeply resent Rigoletto's japes at their expenses, to the point where they actually kidnap Gilda, his daughter, and hand her to the Duke, even though he was already seducing her. They thought that Rigoletto has a lover. How disgusting. So they trick him and stuff like that. But it's it's like the Duke is resented in a way, but only Count Montesson has any sort of power to resist him. And I mean internal power, not external power. He lost his rebellion. Um, it's interesting stuff. Like it's worth like sort of paying attention, because if you can't stand the image, how can you stand something as beautiful as the opera Rigoletto, or the Barber of Seville, or any number of things? Because you have to now face it in a more active role, right? The image is just still an image, and you can push it away, and you can say, "Oh, actually, he might have kissed Stacy on the field, but he cheated on her with Susan, and who does those things that Stacy would never do." Blah blah blah. You could say things like that. The resentful Gamma can fantasize that in actuality the affair is sordid, and that their spirits are as cursed as his, and that he's actually virtuous because he does not sin. No, no, sir, no sin in this soul. Um, but in something like Rigoletto, where you see the Duke, he explains his reasoning. If a woman should catch my eye, it's all right. He just kind of sings and enjoys life. Is he right or wrong? Oh, he's wrong. But everyone treats him like he's right. No priest comes and rebukes him. He's rebuked by a rebellious count. Who lost his own daughter, and the Count may curse the Duke, but the curse lands most heavily on his jester. The one of the last lines is that in the play is Rigoletto going, "Oh, here's the jester on top of the Duke. Like I have won. Me. Has won the jester. Ha ha ha. You know, uh, and then he hears the Duke singing to himself, "If a woman should catch my eye, it's all right." And then he goes, "No," and then him and Gilda have the most heartbreaking duet, and then the play ends with Rigoletto screaming into the night, "The old man cursed me," oh, and he weeps over the body of his daughter. um it's it's just interesting stuff. Like it creates not just a picture, but emotion, a set of thought forms. These people are singing about their truly held beliefs. They hate the jester, so they sing vendetta, vendetta against him. And the second they hear he has something good in his life, that's maybe perhaps outside his station, a mistress who's his daughter actually, and he doesn't treat her like a mistress, to be clear. Um, he just hides her away from the rapacious duke, who finds her anyway. They attack, they trick him and kidnap the mistress. Um, then the next step with Spara Fusil, who it would not for the money he's given, he will deliver a body, but you convince him to take another one. Or Gilda, who hears the prostitute fall in love with the duke, even as the duke uses the same lines of seduction. Not every line the same, he tailored it, but like he uses the same lines of seduction on her as he did on Gilda. And then she hears, oh, we'll kill him tonight. Oh, if only I could, sacrifice myself for him. Can I? Should I sacrifice myself for the Duke of Mantua? As they sing it. And it's just, I think there's a reason why, as things are getting like Delta, Gamma, Omega, uh, society, as a society in general, that these things like operas are falling out of service, and they become more and more elite every decade, as they were once before. But let me look and see. Operas in St. Louis. Now, in St. Louis, that'll be fairly easy, right? But let's see what's playing right now. There's a Phantom of the
Unfortunately, I have
Opera.
no operas around me. Probably,
Yeah.
if I really wanted to, I could probably find something in New York City. Uh,
Mhm.
but even
Yeah,
that's a fair drive and a pretty miserable one.
yeah. And like we have the Muni, but even then, there's no events going on right here. Let's see what Opera Theater of St. Louis has. The Pirates of Penzance, Light in the Piazza. I
Dope.
don't know that. I don't know that one. Streetcar Named Desire. A Romeo and Juliet, and some concerts. I'm not sure. Pirates of the Penzance. Oh,
So
and
only
this is,
one opera, and it's a Gilbert and Sullivan.
yeah. And the rest of them are for like next year, by the way. These are tickets for 2026. And this is St. Louis. Like, we have a very strong art setup, and it's not nearly as cucked as you might expect it to be, for our um, uh, setup. The For our politics and stuff like that. I'm looking to see what's actually happening right now. But at most, I get a Hispanic Heritage Month celebration for one day on Tuesday, October 7th. Okay, hold on. Let me try this. Auditions, opera on the go, whatever that is. Uh, yeah, like there's actually very little happening. It's I'm sure it takes time to prepare. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to say that, oh, it's nothing. These things have times to prepare. But like, the best I can do is go to like a movie theater, and sit there, and there's a movie version of the Magic Flute, which is a stage play version that they've just treated like a movie. Um, and I can watch it from the movie theater. There's a loss of this kind of thing, where you can sort of expect opera and stuff like that playing. Even for things like the St. Louis Symphony, there's relatively few things going on, and even the video game events, don't seem to draw crowds like you might want them to. Um, let's see here. Oh, here's a smaller opera house. Uh, and they've got My Fair Lady, Josephine / Pagliatre, Salome, um, and a one-act festival. In currently going on. Uh, it's it's it takes I can search for things and I start finding things, interesting things, even Pirates of Penzance and stuff like that, but it's just a little bit more difficult. That deeper art that people might want to see, or might not want to see, but really that might want to see, that makes a higher culture, is just non-available. Gilbert and Sullivan is fine. I enjoy very deeply the play of Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead. I think it's very interesting. I would,
I tend to agree.
yeah.
To be honest, I haven't thought deeply enough about it to know if it's really evil or not. It might be.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I haven't thought enough about it to say, but it does amuse me.
The lack of opera.
No, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead.
Ah.
But yeah, like, for those who are wondering about this, Tom Simon has a brilliant essay on it. I've mentioned before, my all-time favorite Tom Simon essay, like, it legitimately changed the way I looked at art, is called Death by Bebop. And it's one of his Smiggy McStudge essays, which are like screw tape style essays, but on the culture. He's the only writer I've ever seen besides C.S. Lewis who could write in the screw tape voice effectively. He has a follow-up piece, or a companion piece, to Death by Bebop, which is about the death of jazz music, called Zombie Opera, which is about the death of opera and like why opera died. And they said it used to be, in its heyday, the popular entertainment. They said, the British would tell jokes, but the Italians would sing in order to distract themselves from their horrible lives. And this evolved into the art form of opera. And it used to be, what happened is, it used to be the art form of the common people until the McStudges of the world, right, the demons and those influenced by them, decided that they needed to destroy this new art form, right? So the way that they did it was that instead of making it the art of the common people, it became the art of the elite. And as the art of the elite, you needed to be of a certain class to really enjoy the opera. First off, they weren't going to sing it in your language. That's ridiculous. That might mean you could understand it. True elites know that opera properly is done in the original tongue that it was written in, and only that tongue. And of course, you needed to dress in a certain way. And if you didn't, woe be to you, you could be kicked out of the establishment and not enjoy the show anymore. And it just generally, like, it stopped evolving as an art form, right? So that things, it never grew into any sort of thing. Think of, like, I'm trying to, as an example of, like, rock music had a pretty decent run, right? Started in around the 50s or so, and reached its heyday in the 80s with another era of interesting sort of music in the 90s, and then it died, right? And now we're basically listening to reruns of rock. The thing is that, like, rock music evolved in that time. It was different things, even though it could be identified as rock music. Opera as well, but opera stopped evolving because the common people were boxed out of opera. They were no longer, like, able to see it, which meant that there was no money in it, number one, because, like, yeah, there were elites, but elites only did it for status reasons, and that can only carry you so far, right? Gilbert and Sullivan did repopularize it to an extent. Simon has an amusing thing in the comments. Somebody asked him about Gilbert and Sullivan, and Simon responds. He goes, "I asked the McStudge about Gilbert and Sullivan. This is what he had to say. It's like, Gilbert and Sullivan are vile, insufferably vile, horribly vile." And then the McStudge just goes on about how horrible Gilbert and Sullivan are. Because, of course, they said basically they make fun of the aristocrats, right? They create opera for the common people. that's where opera probably would have need to evolve, not necessarily. And you might go like, oh, well, is a musical the evolution of opera? No, different roots. Like they evolved in a completely different way. I'm not even kidding. Like people think like, oh, well, musicals evolved from opera. No, opera
I would
evolved.
actually
That's
said
not really
opera
true.
evolved from musicals.
What was that?
I would have said the opposite personally, but
Like opera evolved from musical? Well, kind of. Like yes and no. They're
okay.
really different roots. Like musicals were let's add music to plays, right? Opera was basically its own separate art form with its own tropes and way of
Yes.
doing things, right? Like one and the other were paralleled and certainly had overlap, but ultimately were different, right? What I'm saying is musical was not the evolution of opera, you know.
Okay.
It was very much a different thing. Simon doesn't go into this, but I just happen to know this. I know a little bit about the history of the musical,
Sure.
which, by the way, is a very American art form.
Yes.
You know, it reminds me of Vox Day going like, I forget what it was. Somebody was criticizing some sort of musical, and they go, "You people who are calling musicals gay," he's like, "You're all He goes, "You're all retarded." You're like, "You're seriously not seeing the difference." I forget exactly what it was. Like, you seriously don't see the difference between like the Music Man and whatever shit's going on now. And then he's like, he goes, "For God's sake, are you going to make me write a musical now through Castalia House or something like that?"
Right.
Vox is right. Like, yeah, okay. You go, oh, musicals were always gay. It's like, no, you retards. You're missing the point, right? Like, yes, but actually, no. Like, there is a very clear difference between
Yes.
what they were and what they are. And nor were they an inherent problem, right? Like, not in the way that they
Right.
are now. Like, you didn't have to be gay to be a musical. You could be, and often it was made by gays, right? Like Rodgers and Hammerstein were famously. But nevertheless, that wasn't something that was like necessary to the art form in the way that it is on, frankly, modern Broadway, right?
Yes.
But yeah, going back
There's
to this,
gay
the
and
death
then
of
there's
opera
gay.
is sad. The death of opera is very sad.
Mm.
And it's artificial. It was an entirely artificial thing. It was they locked out the normies, right? And they locked out the common man, and they made it something that elites need to do, added a bunch of rules that nobody was interested in, and then specifically made it so that it was difficult to follow and that there was no reason to get into it anymore because there was no longer any cultural relevance or money in it, right?
Yeah.
So this kills opera. Opera's now a zombie. And it's not killed in the same way that rock isn't dead, right? Like, yeah, I'm sure if you really search, new opera is probably being made. Yeah, if you really search, you'll probably find opera houses every now and then in certain areas of the
Right.
country,
In
right?
the,
Just like
million person cities,
right, just like surely with all of the millions of musicians in the world, new jazz is being made, right? Or new rock is being made. And probably some of it is even fine, but as a popular art form, it's dead.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's never going to reach the heights that it ever did ever again. The McStudges of the world have killed it. And it's a tragedy because unfortunately it means that people don't even appreciate the opera that was already made, even though some of it really is extremely high art and very much worth paying attention to. There was an interesting exchange on Twitter where Brian Niemeyer was talking with Kitsune Shea, who is a pulp author, I believe, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And he's as we call it on the show, he is friend coded, so we like Kit.
Yep.
Brian as well, friend coded, but the interaction was interesting because they were talking. Brian's been harping on recently about how you really need an editor, if for no other reason than to forestall accusations of AI slop. Because at the very least, even if it's generated with AI, well, if you have an editor, it's not going to be slop, or it's going to be less likely to be slop, and people can't really accuse you of that, right? Okay,
Yeah.
fine, whatever, fair enough. but Kitsune Shea says something to him like, I don't really consider these works that you're talking about art. And Brian responds like, well, you're incorrect because they are made to a standard. He's like, now I agree with you that the standard is very low. It's like it needs to hit the standard of being like, I forget what it was exactly. I would need to find the tweet.
Yeah.
But it was like, I don't know, basically lowbrow, James Patterson style, right? Like quick release books. Nevertheless, it does need to hit that standard. Because the standard is low, that makes it low art. Right?
Yeah.
But if the standard is high, that makes it high art. And I've never really seen that distinction made in that way, and I appreciate it. I will say this. That definition, art is work produced to a standard, is one I first heard from J.D. Cohen. And Brian has used it, and I've seen it gain more traction. I will say that I do kind of agree with Tom Simon on this. He has his own definition that he put in a recent article, and I brought up the art is work to a standard. And he goes, I like the definition, but it's like missing. It seems to be missing something because nobody would say that about a toilet. I'm sorry. I understand that they probably JD and Brian would bite that bullet, I suspect, from talking with them. They would go, yeah, no, I would. But I think that Tom is correct when he goes, sorry, then you're just using the word in a way that nobody uses it, right?
Yeah.
Like it's a little too ridiculous. So I do propose one change. Art is work created to an aesthetic standard. And I think that solves the problem.
Yes.
So that would be my definition, which, by the way, would resolve the issue. Most video game, when it actually makes a lot of sense out of the whole are video games art debate, because the answer would in fact only sometimes. If they are trying to reach an aesthetic standard, when they do that, they are art. If they don't care, they are not. And that actually does explain a lot of like, why is BioShock considered art, but I don't know, this game that's much better isn't. Well, because BioShock's story was trying to reach a certain aesthetic standard. It was trying to hit the standard of being a good story well told, right? And you could argue if it hits that standard, but at the very least, it was certainly attempting to do it in an interesting way. Whereas a game like, I'm thinking of like that indie game Pizza Tower that people enjoy, right?
Yes.
Pizza Tower is not. Now, that doesn't mean Pizza Tower is arguably a better game, right? But it's not art because it's not trying to hit any sort of aesthetic standard, except maybe in the artwork, right? The visual style.
It has a style, but it doesn't necessarily create something. Like it's mostly a gag, I guess I'll say.
Yes. And I think so I actually do really like this definition of art. Art is work created to an aesthetic standard because I think it very neatly makes sense of a lot of the discussion that happens that people get mad about, right? Like, oh, well, why is this considered art, but this isn't? And by the way, this also kind of gets to a point, which is that being art and being a good video game are not the same thing, right?
Right.
So you have like walking sim. There was the famously terrible walking simulator that was called that, like got a bunch of great critic reviews because it was a gay story, but got terrible user reviews. Gone Home, I believe it was. Yeah, like they go through a house and you have to and you slowly learn what happened to the family. Was this art in a way that, say, Pizza Tower was not? Yes. I would argue that, in fact, it is art. It is bad art, right? It's not well-made art, but it is, in fact, art. They were trying to tell a story, and they are thus held to the standards of good storytelling, right? However, that doesn't mean, is it a good video game? Well, no, obviously not. It's a terrible video game. It has no intrigue as a video game, right? Like, there's no reason to play. It's poor art, so there's no reason to play through the story anyway, and the story itself is quite poor. So, like, it's a terrible game, but it is, in fact, a poorly made piece of art. Pizza Tower, on the other hand, in most ways is not art at all. And if it is art, is not even trying to be high art. It is low art. Is it a better game? Sure, it's a better game, right? It's a much better game, but that's not the same thing.
Yes.
Anyway, yeah, I think it's very interesting. Aaron Van Treek says these kinds of conversations feel like we got a bunch of responses. I want to go through them quick.
I talked over them.
Oh, you did while I was gone?
Yeah.
No.
Or just in the conversation.
I'm sad. Fair enough. Okay. Then I'll just say hi, everybody.
Hello.
Very cool. But yeah, it's interesting, right? Like this whole conversation, the culture is in such a bad state right now, right? We're not really making, and this is the problem. It comes from what Brian Niemeyer's identified as like the death of art in the 90s, or the death of culture. I mean, not the death of art, the death of culture in the 90s.
Yep.
That we had this boom in the 80s, a brief drop, and then the high 90s, which was like a sort of mini revival. And then 1997, we haven't really had anything new since then. It's not a hard limit. Video games, for example, lasted a little bit longer than like Hollywood did, right? Because you got like the PS2 era, which is still much beloved to this day and should be, and that was a little bit past that. But probably the last great era of gaming actually was the PS2 era. Come to think of it.
Like despite what we're actually in one, or what?
I mentioned this like yes and no. I mentioned this on Twitter myself. If I said if you ignore the fact that AAA is dead, we're in a great era of gaming.
Oh yeah,
but
I'm playing Slay the Spire right now.
Yeah, but that's kind of my point, right? You can't. Video games are in a very specific state.
Yes.
Video games can be made easily by indies. They're like the perfect thing for indies, right? Books can be made by anyone. But the problem is it's so easy to write a book. I'm not saying easy to write a good book. I'm saying easy to write a book, right?
Yep.
It's so easy to write a book, and even easier now with LLMs, that there's no quality control and it's very hard to be noticed, right? Okay.
Yep.
Movies are on the opposite end. It's basically impossible to make a movie on any sort of budget. A quote unquote cheap movie is $100K. That's an ultra cheap movie, right?
Yep.
It's also out of the range of 99% of humanity plus, right? 99.9% of humans will never, ever be able to fund this. And it's just like you need too many things. So movie indie scene is in a very different state. Video games are in a sweet spot, right? You need some skill to be able to make a game, and you need a little bit of a budget, like, although probably something that you can get through a Kickstarter, but you need something in order to make a decent game. But the fact that there needs to be some level of skill means there's at least a little bit of quality control. I'm not saying that there isn't a lot of garbage that comes out, but it's a lot easier to filter through it and find the good stuff.
Yep.
So, yeah, I agree with you, but part of that, like you go, well, we're in a good era of games now. Right. If you ignore the fact that AAA is dead, like, yes, I agree. What was the last good AAA game? Spider-Man? Probably.
Oh, you think so?
I thought it was great. Yeah. No, I'm not gonna lie. I don't pretend to not like things because new thing bad. Right. I think Insomniac Spider-Man was great. I did not play the sequel and have no interest in it because it looks awful. Like, I don't know why I would, but I thought that the story was excellent and the gameplay was a blast. I mean, what was it before that? The Last of Us?
Are you being serious?
What am I missing?
Well, I mean, I guess maybe the normies liked it, but it wasn't all that good.
The original Last of Us?
Yeah.
No, I don't agree. The Last of Us is a very good game.
Okay.
I'll
me-
I'll I'll argue that. Look, I think The Last
No,
of
no,
Us
hold
was
on.
over.
The last okay, here's no no, I'm not going to fight on The Last of Us. It's too enemy coded. The no, I'll
Okay, so
fight.
here's the
No,
thing.
hold
The
on. We'll
original
give it.
Last of Us was
Hold on. Did you?
overrated, heavily
Okay.
so.
Okay.
Was it good though? I would argue yes. I think it was good.
Okay. All right then. I'll leave it be. So no, there's actually several ones that have come out since the original posting of The Last of Us. And this is going to be crazy to some people. And this is AAA Heights, Doom Eternal, Death Stranding. Uh, I don't know if this one is Atomic Heart, but I don't know if Atomic Heart's AAA.
I don't think it is, but Doom
Elden
Eternal I'll
Ring.
give you, but Death
Elden
Stranding
Ring.
is at the very least controversial.
Okay, I'll accept controversial. But point is, it's a AAA top tier game. The other one, of course, the big one, the big kahuna is Elden Ring.
Is Elden Ring AAA from Software? Didn't that start as a smaller studio?
It started as a smaller studio, but it's got to be AAA by now. Like, how is it not AAA?
I'm looking this up. Wow, that's the second thing on Google if I type in is from Software. Nice. They do not meet the strict criteria of AAA studios. They're in the upper tier of AA developers.
So I'm actually, the DuckDuckGo AI tells me that they are considered a AAA.
That's funny. So there is a debate over this.
And I'm looking at this, and I'm going to the source of Games Radar from 2024. Dustin Bailey, a trustworthy games journalist. No, there's no such thing. How does From
You
Software
jest.
release AAA games so frequently? Which is actually a relatively famous article because it talks about, From Software not firing everyone. Is it a AAA developer? Let's see here. They certainly say that it's a AAA game. I don't know.
I'm seeing disagreement. They're on the edge.
So in other words, it's a AAA. Sorry, it's a AA plus.
Yeah, we'll give it that.
It's a AA 0.9.
But there is a difference here. Elden Ring is Japanese.
No.
Isn't From Software a Japanese company? Yeah, headquarters.
No, it is. But what I'm saying is that doesn't matter.
Sure, it does.
No,
that makes a huge difference.
Yeah, I mean, yes, it makes a huge difference. But what I'm saying is that like it's still a video game. It's still fighting in the same sphere as Call of Duty and FIFA.
Well, right, but that's like saying like, oh, movies aren't good, then going like, well, what about Godzilla -1? It matters that it was made not in Hollywood.
It's still a movie.
Right, but when you're discussing the state of the industry, the fact that you need to go to Japan for a good game.
No, you don't. You can go to Russia for Atomic Heart.
Fair.
Or wherever Kojima's holed up in.
No, I think it is true that AAA gaming's in a terrible spot right now. I will stand by that.
I don't debate it, but when you say the last truly great game is like Last of Us, that's utter nonsense. I refuse. I refuse.
Well, I don't even think that. I was trying to. First off, I'm really not like. Let me clarify. Number one, I actually don't think that because I thought that the Insomniac Spider-Man was really good.
Okay.
I consider it to be a better game in basically every way than The Last of Us, actually.
Or Insomniac Spider-Man, I mean. But
yeah, and that was a couple years ago, I think. Elden Ring, I'm sure was great. I've only heard great things about it. I just
I
don't.
deeply
I'm not
enjoyed
into
it.
the Dark Souls games, so like whatever.
2000. Which one? The first one or the second one?
What? Spider-Man?
Yeah.
Oh, the first one. The first
Okay.
one.
From like before,
100%.
like 2020
Yeah,
or
that came out
2022.
after The Last of Us.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Just want to make sure.
No, the second one I've only heard bad things about from people who I trust.
Yeah.
The most positive thing I heard about it was it's really not that bad, which is like, why the fuck am I paying $60 for it's really not that bad? No.
It's really not that bad, Anthony.
Yeah. Like, no, screw that. So no. I don't really want to fight with you on this because I'm not trying to be dogmatic about like, and the only good game has been The Last of Us, then literally nothing. No, I'm sure like, yeah, every now and then a good release is pumped out in the same way that every now and then Hollywood accidentally makes something good like The Penguin or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But that's not that's kind of not my point. My point was that there has been very, very little that's made any sort of splash in the industry. Even the stuff that has, like, I'll give you Doom Eternal. Although the new good Doom game, for some reason, people have been counter signaling the new Doom game a lot on our side. Like John Delarose was going off, and I'm like, I don't know, man, this actually looks really friggin' cool. I want to play it.
It's a little slower pace than Doom Eternal.
I'm sure. Here's the thing, like, I don't really like shooters that much. I don't hate them. I've played shooters that I've liked, like, but it's certainly
Yeah.
not my favorite genre. And I normally wouldn't have any interest in it at all, except that the aesthetic of Doom Eternal looks so cool. And then I hear people going like, "Ha, look at that! They overcharged for whatever." And I'm like, I don't know, man. It looks pretty cool. I don't know what you want, what you're looking for, but you
Right.
get to play as Doom Guy, except it's the Middle Ages, and that's pretty dope.
It is pretty dope.
So I will probably get it one day when there's a Steam sale for like 50% off. You know.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, I'll give you Doom Eternal as an exception. That did make a pretty big splash when it came out. I remember. There was a lot of like, this is one of the greatest shooter ever talk, and people still say that every now and then. You know,
Yeah.
I don't know if that's really true, but the fact that people are saying it means that it, and like people still mean it. You know, means that it can't be dismissed. But the interesting things in gaming nowadays, like, it's obvious, and the affordable things and the things that aren't ripping people off, most of them are being done in the indie scene. And the indie scene is coming out with a lot of interesting stuff, right? Like Silk Song is $20, you know.
Yeah. I
And
could
there's
afford
an
that.
absolutely ludicrous debate over the fact that Silk Song, they came out with their game at an affordable price point for fans. And it's screwing over people who are overcharging for their games. Like the lady who just posted, somebody even did this, and they're right. She just made fun and goes, I posted that I charge $100 for sketches, and everyone's mad. Someone goes, I don't know, man. They just came out with Silk Song for $20, and these sketches take like a half hour. Like,
Right.
it's like is that real? Like, do you really think? And but that's the thing, though. They're right. Like, that's absolutely a good point.
No. Actually, no. Excuse me. For a sketch, it's a good point.
Yes. Yeah, specifically, right? Like,
Yep.
and I followed an account that does sketches for free if you're a new subscriber, and we'll do commissions. It's pretty cool. I think I shared it a few weeks ago. He does Arthurian themed sketches, and I have a sketch from him about Lancelot being confronted by Agravain, Arthur, and Mordred.
Yeah.
He just did it for free because I'm a new subscriber to his Twitter. That's how he like gets people. You know, it's pretty great. I recommend you follow him. I'll link him to you later. I don't remember his name off the top of my head, unfortunately, or I'd say it now, but I'll link him to him later. Anyone can check my Twitter for it. Anyway, yeah, like with Silk Song, you know, in the indie sphere, there's a lot of great stuff coming out. And I'm not even saying that like they're not all friend coded, but but there's a difference, right? Like you can not be friend coded, but have fucking effort, you know. Like not Elden Ring, Baldur's Gate 3, right? Is very gay.
Very good.
Does that mean it's bad? No, I'm sure it isn't bad, right? Like my sister loves Baldur's Gate 3. She admits it's very gay. She's like, oh yeah, like it's super gay. But it's good. The Hades games are some of my all-time favorite games. They're ultra gay, right? Like if you pay
Ultra
attention to
gay.
things in the background of the story, but they're really good.
It's not even subtext in the Hades games. But
yes and no. It's not the main point of the story, is what I'm saying. Like you do need to go out of your way, like mildly. You know, like romancing people. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Like, but I'm not defending that aspect of it. But they're games that have like heart and effort put into them. You know, there is a clear vision. There's a clear passion behind the game. The people who made it clearly were excited about what they were able to do. It's the same with like Baldur's Gate. It's the same with Hollow Knight, for that matter, and Silk Song, right? Like the developers of Silk Song even talked about this. They were like, sorry, like it's actually really funny. They said, sorry we took so long, guys. We were just having so much fun making the game. And they were like, we actually could have gone longer, but we wanted to release it. So we're just going to release the new stuff we have as DLC. And then somebody said, I've never heard of a game being delayed because it was in developer heaven before.
Developer heaven. That's fantastic.
That's a great line. You know, you always hear about development hell. And then someone's like, wow, I've never heard of a game being in development heaven before. But yeah, like, these indie games have so much passion behind them. And sure, like, they're not all friend coded. They're not all by people who are like super based right wing or whatever, but that's not the point, right? Like, you want to see effort. You want to see like people who care and who want to make a good product. And you have a vision. And that's what we are seeing, right? But we're seeing it in the indie sphere. Now, it's not literally exclusively. Like, if you want to get really technical, yes. Like, once every few years, a game with some passion comes out, right? In AAA. Just like in Hollywood, where you go, oh, well, there's no good films coming out of Hollywood. And someone goes, really? No good films? Yeah, okay. Like, you know, once a year, something that's a solid 7 of 10 might drop, right?
Right.
Like Nobody or whatever, you know. But clearly what we mean is that it's not happening at the rate that it used to or should be. And yeah, we've gone far afield from our original topic of discussion.
Yeah.
But it is kind of all connected, right? Because it's about the culture and that we're in a culture that's dying. And it's pretty frightening, right? To be living through. It's kind of sad, you know.
It honestly, it is very frustrating because it's like you want to do things, but you can't do things. It's that anarcho tyranny, and what actually isn't, you know, you not or doing things or whatever, and then like it's like how much of it is just your mindset. You know, you're accepting the chains on you. You know, it's a difficult thing all around, and even then, that statement you just made does tie into the main subject. You know, like the two incels, are they tied down by their beliefs to be unable to, you know, find a woman to love or even just like a little bit? You know, what can they do when they experience these things and have these conversations? Like, I've cut out people from my life that I've known for 20 years. And, you know, it was only good for me, you know, to remove that incel ideas that they, you know, sort of espoused on their own. You know, I never talk to them and I never get angry at what they say when they say wrong things to me. You know, like it's something I should have done earlier if I was more Sigma, you know, or something like that. But it's, you know, with the lives that we have and the few social situations that we have that are wholesome, like like I talked to, one of the fellow bouncers, and they're like, oh, where is everyone? Oh, yeah, X bouncer is taking Y bouncer out on the birthday. Oh, I didn't know it was his birthday. It turns out I've been kind of out of the loop, which is, my normal situation. It's been normal for quite some time. But it's like we need to hang out, and I'm talking to them about the inane things they want to talk about. I'm not being some sort of like gamma too good for this world. I'm being a normal individual, just with heavy right wing views, and the wherewithal to act on them. So it's like you still can have your cake and eat it too, guys. Come on, you can be social and have ho frightening politics. The whole frighteningest politics ever. If I bring a girl home after marriage, I'm going to have to hide some books on certain eras of art. Uh, she won't understand, fellas. I'm a sensitive young man at 36 years old. Well. All right, Anthony, anything else you want to talk about?
No, I'm good. I mean, I guess my main thing is like there's a certain this is what I will caution against with when it comes to like incels, and it's kind of what I was trying to get at earlier. There's a certain thing that we need to remember, that not all incels are gammas and omegas. Some of them are deltas, and this is another way of saying that some of them are perfectly normal people who don't deserve to be like in the state that they're in, and we need to be cautious about like mockery is not going to work with such people in motivating them, right?
Nope.
Like man up and marry those sluts type talk is old hat now, and luckily that seems to have died off in recent years.
Yeah, I haven't really heard any of that seriously for a very long time.
Yeah, but even like, but man up stuff has been like, we go, well, suck it up, buttercup. Like, it's not that easy. We're not talking about like weirdos who can't interact with people and who can't interact with the world, right? Like,
yeah.
What we're talking about are just guys, normal people, right?
Just guys, yeah.
Yeah, who should not, in a healthy society, they would not be in this state. So the way to help these people is not to tell them, well, you got to change, right? Like in some interesting way, in some major way. Like, yeah, sure, there are things you could do to optimize yourself, right? But ultimately, we need deltas, telling deltas to not be deltas, like that's not how society works and not how people work. We need to help them.
Yeah. And my oath in a way is to always be a friend to Zoomers and whatnot, because one, I think they're going to be the main force for a lot of changes that are going to have to happen or just simply not happen. And to give them a leg up whenever possible. But this is I'm getting pretty tired. I worked until like 3 and I had to shove what felt like 100 tables around. So I'm ready to go to bed, even as early as 8 o'clock. I want to thank you all for joining. Next week I'll probably think of something to do. I don't know, Anthony. I might make you choose this time.
Yay.